Bueno, iniciamos
Very well.
el último tramo, el último bloque
Start the
de esta
last
intensa semana.
block of this very
Hemos
intense week.
tenido muchas y muy ricas
I think we have had
discusiones que nos dejan
many and very rich
muchas
discussions
oportunidades
that
prácticamente
have
de
yielded
trabajo y
many
de colaboración
opportunities and
a
ideas
futuro.
for collaboration from now on.
Le doy la bienvenida a Federico Villarreal, el director
I would
de
like
Untitled Chapter,
to
que estuvo
welcome Federico
presente por
Villarreal,
aquí,
the
pero nos
Director of
acompaña
Technical
nuevamente
Collaboration.
en el cierre.
He was
Y se
here in
sumaría
previous days, but
por
he's
este
now joining
momento
us
Miguel Ángel
in
Arbelo,
today's
que es el jefe de gabinete
closing
y el representante de
uh,
UNIT en Costa Rica.
of this
La idea
week.
entonces, como dijimos
And
al
we'll have the
inicio,
people
era
joining us later on.
en esta sesión
The idea
relativamente breve de
is to
cierre
have
podamos
this
rescatar
brief
las
closing
principales
session and
ideas o
be able
conclusiones
to summarize some of the main
de todo lo que
conclusions or
hemos
outcomes of
podido
everything that
conversar
we heard
durante la semana
throughout the week,
con el equipo del programa de digitalización
together with
alimentaria.
the
Tratamos de
team
ir tomando
of
notas y
digitalization,
organizando
food
de alguna
digitalization.
manera
That we have been
las
able to
actividades
summarize almost
lo
in
que hemos
real time
discutido y
the
tenemos algunas notas acá
comments,
que queremos
and
leer
we have
para
a
ver si
couple of notes that we would like to read to
refleja
you
todo
to
lo que hemos
see if
discutido
they
y si hay
reflect
algo que
everything that was
creemos que se está
discussed,
perdiendo,
if there's something that is
abordar
being left out.
en base a eso y después de pasada
And
esta semana
having
poder trabajar en un
spent this
texto
week talking
más
about this,
organizado y
we
prolijito del
can
que
then
podríamos llegar a hacer
draft
hoy, ¿no?
a
Entonces la propuesta
text.
que les hacemos es
Uh,
que,
so the
bueno, que
proposal
vayamos a través de ese documento, voy a leerlo yo,
is to read the
que
document,
vayan anotándose si hay
for you
alguna
to
cosa
write down
que notan que está faltando,
if there's
avísenme cuando
anything missing,
terminen
and let
de
me know
lectura
at the
y
end of the
bueno,
reading.
después de esa lectura breve, son 2 carillas las que
And
tenemos,
we only
abrimos
have two
el
pages
intercambio
that we need to read.
para terminar de cerrar las ideas.
And
¿Bien?
after that, we will conclude.
Entonces, en lo que tenemos aquí listado, tratamos como de
So
organizar
we
los
try to
3 o 4 bloques
organize 3 or 4
que básicamente
blocks
refieren a cosas
that
distintas, vinculadas entre sí, pero distintas,
are with things that are
y
linked
van
but
a
that are
notar que algunas
different.
cosas como muy obvias
And some of the
de
things may
pronto, pero
be
no por
very
eso
obvious because they
van a ir
were told
en
time
un
and time
resumen final y
again,
en un
but
documento
the
final,
idea
y
is for
otras
the document to
quizás un
include
poco
those
más
as well.
específicas.
And there are others that may be more
El primer
specific.
grupo
The first
digamos, de conclusiones tiene que ver
group
con
of
el rol y el
conclusions
alcance de
have
las
to do
tecnologías
with the
digitales
role
y tratamos de recopilarlo ahí
and
bajo ese título,
digital
todo lo que se fue diciendo en ese sentido.
technologies.
Quizás lo más repetido
What
y lo
was
más
repeated here
obvio a
and
esta
the most
altura,
obvious thing at this
pero
point,
de nuevo, no por eso
and
me parece que
again,
no tenemos
because
que
it's
dejar
obvious, we shouldn't leave it
que
out,
las
is
soluciones
that the
digitales o las
digital
herramientas
solutions
digitales
and digital
son
tools
la principal
are
herramienta
the
que tenemos
main
para
tool that
alcanzar
we
sistemas
have
agroalimentarios más
to have
productivos,
more
más
productive
sostenibles,
agri-food
de
systems,
menor
as
impacto
well as more
y
sustainable
más
agri-food
inclusivas.
systems, and some systems that would
Luego,
have less of an
las
impact
soluciones
and more
digitales
inclusive ones.
son un medio
So digital
y no son un
solutions are a
fin
means, not an end,
para lograr esas
to be
transformaciones
able to attain
necesarias
these necessary
de los sistemas
transformations of
agroalimentarios
the
que
agri-food
están
systems
existiendo en el
faced with
presente y los que
the
tendrán en el
current
futuro.
challenge, current and future challenges.
Luego, que los agricultores y
Then
sus
that
familias
farmers
tienen
and
que
their
estar en el
families
centro
should
de
be
la
at the
escena
core
del proceso de
of
desarrollo y de
the
incorporación de las
development
tecnologías
process for said technologies.
Creo que más de una vez fue
I
mencionado
think
eso
this was
y
said more than
valdría la pena
once, and
resaltarlo.
I believe it's good to have it here.
Como otro punto adicional,
Another
es
additional point would be
prioritario trabajar
to
para
say
que las
that
soluciones
it's
digitales lleguen a los pequeños
priority to
agricultores.
make sure that
Y,
digital solutions reach
puntualmente
small producers,
de lo que escuchamos ayer de Arturo,
especially based on what
hay
we heard from
experiencias que
Arturo
muestran
yesterday. There are some
posibilidades
experiences
concretas de uso
that
de tecnologías
show some
digitales por parte de
specific
los pequeños productores.
examples of how small producers can use digital technologies.
También, como otro punto adicional,
Another
estamos
additional
bajo el
point would
primer subtítulo
be
que
we're
dice
still under the same header,
rol y
the
alcance de las
role
tecnologías
and
digitales.
scope of digital
Actualmente hay
technologies.
una prominente oferta de
There is
soluciones digitales,
a vast
muchas de origen en las
supply
Américas.
of digital
Sin
technologies, many
embargo, lo que
located in the
todavía está
Americas,
limitado es
but
su uso o su
their
aprovechamiento por
use
distintas barreras.
is
Entonces,
still limited.
varios y de distintas maneras
So several people in
terminan
different ways
de algún modo
ended up
refiriendo a lo mismo, que
referring
es
to the
que
same
la
idea
tecnología está,
that technology is
soluciones
available,
sobran, que
that
lo que
there are
falta,
many solutions,
digamos, o el
but
margen más grande de
what's
progreso que tenemos
missing
es el uso
is the
efectivo y el
use, the effective
aprovechamiento
use
de esas
and
soluciones.
enjoyment of said
Y
solutions.
como dice acá el texto, el gran
And
reto que
The
es saber
great
cómo
challenge
se
that we
llevan
have is how to make
recursos
sure
digitales
digital
a los
technologies
agricultores.
make it all the way down to
Em, También notamos principalmente
farmers.
en algunas, o anotamos principalmente
We
en base a
also
algunas cosas que se dijeron hoy de la mano
mm,
de los representantes de agricultores, que hay
wrote down a
nuevas
few
demandas
things
de los
said today
consumidores
that
y los mercados de exportación
the export
principalmente, que requieren
markets
ciertos
and
estándares de
consumers'
trazabilidad, que
requirements
tractor o traccionan,
that
digamos,
require
los
also
estándares
traceability
actuales.
are a good driver for
Y por
the
último,
adoption
como
of
último ítem
digital
de este
technologies.
punto,
And the last point in this
anotamos
section,
eh,
we
que
wrote
debemos
that
reconocer
we
las
need to
diferencias
acknowledge
geográficas y
the
culturales en la
geographical and
agricultura,
cultural differences in
ganadería
the
y
Americas
agricultura, no solo entre
in
regiones, sino también entre
agriculture,
países
and
dentro de
not
una región
only
y entre
between
distintos
regions, but within the same
productores
country and within
en un
the
mismo país
producers
incluso.
within
¿Mm?
the same country as well.
Sigo, de nuevo, si van notando que
If you
hay algo
think
que no está, tomen nota cuando
something's
terminemos y
missing, note
si
it
esto no se
down, write it
mencionó o nos
down,
falta de acá para
and you
adelante,
can let me know at the end.
lo planteamos. El otro gran ítem
The other
que,
big item
o tema, digamos,
or
que
topic
mencionamos es el de las
that
barreras
we
y
talked about
limitaciones
was the barriers and
necesarias para el
limitations
aprovechamiento más
for
alto de
a
las nuevas
greater
tecnologías.
use of technologies.
Y ahí básicamente tomamos nota de las que
And
más se
there,
repitieron,
basically, we wrote down the ones
que
that
son,
were
por un
repeated
lado, que las
several times.
soluciones no se
First,
conocen.
that
Les
solutions, the
falta
people don't know
visibilidad, hay
the
mucha
solutions
tecnología o
available.
mucha solución,
There are
pero
many solutions,
no necesariamente los
there's
agricultores
much
las conocen.
technology, but
Que
farmers do
faltan
not know
habilidades
about them.
digitales,
We're missing
y
some
quizás ese fue el
digital
punto clave,
skills,
y que
and that
no
was said
existe la
oftentimes, and that
infraestructura
there's
y la
no
suficiente, en
digital
especial,
infrastructure
para conectarlas.
enough
Son las tres
and
principales
or
cosas.
enough connectivity.
En otro apartado,
Another
eh,
header or headline
incorporamos los
or
conceptos o las
topic
conclusiones respecto a
includes
los
the
nuevos
conclusions with
ecosistemas de
regards to the
innovación
new
y las
innovation
apps.
ecosystems and the app techs.
Entonces, aquí el primer ítem
So the first
que
item
incluimos es
that we
que la
included
innovación
here
es
is that
descentralizada.
innovation is
Lo dijo, en cierto
decentralized.
modo, Tomás
I
Peña,
think that
pero de
Tomás
forma
Peña
directa,
said
implícitamente
this,
estuvo en varias
and
intervenciones.
implicitly it was said by other people.
Las tecnologías digitales,
Digital
como las que generan
technologies,
ustedes,
like the ones generated
emergen
by
de
all of
nuevos
you,
ecosistemas que
emerge from
incluyen
new
diversos,
ecosystems that
diversos
include
actores,
different
y en los
players.
últimos años ha habido
And
un
in the last
desarrollo
years, there's been a
muy fuerte
very
de
strong development
nuevos
of
ecosistemas de
said
innovación
new
en
innovation
Latinoamérica.
ecosystems in Latin America and the
Y nos
Caribbean.
mostraron números respecto a eso.
And you showed us some figures about that. There are
Aceleradores,
more
incubadoras,
aptechs, more
aceleradoras,
incubators, more
hubs y demás.
investment funds, etc.
Sin embargo, y esto es otro ítem seguido al anterior,
And
el
however,
potencial es muy
the
alto.
potential is
Si bien
very
se avanzó
high.
mucho,
And even though
estamos
much
por
progress
delante
has
de
been
ese
made,
salto porque
we
el
still have a long
potencial
way to go
es muy
because the
alto,
potential is very
especialmente
high,
en términos de creación y de desarrollo
particularly in
de
terms of the
empresas
creation and development of
de economía del
companies
conocimiento o
for
apps.
economy of knowledge or aptics.
Luego creo que lo que resultó evidente también, dicho
Something
de
else
distintos
that
modos,
was clear and was
es
said
que
in
las
different
aptech
ways
ocupan un
is that
rol
aptics
protagónico
should play
en el nuevo
a
ecosistema de desarrollo de
key
las
role
tecnologías.
in the
La
new
nueva generación de
development
emprendedores
ecosystem
puede
for
ser motor de
technologies,
la
and
transformación de los sistemas
they can be
agroalimentarios
drivers for the
y
agri-food
dinamización de la
systems
economía del país.
and to make the
Tomando las
economies
palabras
of
de
each
algunos de los
country or the
expositores.
countries more dynamic.
Luego, los institutos de investigación públicos, principalmente
Research,
INIAS e INTAS, y todos
INEAS,
los
INTAS,
que se discutieron
research
ayer,
centers, public mainly,
tienen
and
claramente un
everything that
rol
was talked about
central
yesterday
en el
play
marco
a
del
key
nuevo
role
ecosistema
in within the
y
new
el desarrollo
ecosystem and in the
de
development
soluciones digitales,
and use
y necesitan aún
of digital
fortalecer el
solutions,
análisis
and they
entre
still need
aptechs y
to
innovadores.
develop more
Pueden ser un gran aporte
relationships
en la
with
visibilización de soluciones,
actechs. They
la
may
conexión con agricultores,
contribute
la
greatly
formación de
in the
capacidades y
training of
validación de
capabilities,
tecnologías.
validation of
Y
technologies,
es importante que
and
trabajen de
it is
manera
important for them to
coordinada,
work in a
como ya de
coordinated
algún modo
manner,
algunos lo están
just
empezando a
like
hacer, en
some
especial
people have already
en el
started
sur de
doing
Estados
it in
Unidos.
the southern part of the
Otro
South Cone.
ítem, bajo,
Another
recordemos que
item,
estamos bajo
let's remember that we're under the
ecosistema
header
de innovación y
new
aptechs, es
aptechs and
que se necesitan
innovation
políticas
ecosystems,
públicas para
is that we need
fortalecer y
public
coordinar
policies
los
to
sistemas de innovación,
strengthen and
dando
coordinate the
crédito a
innovation
mecanismos de
systems,
gobernanza que promuevan
developing
y
governance
ordenen la
mechanisms
colaboración
that
entre
will
actores públicos y privados.
organize the relationship
Y
between
también,
public
y creo que
and
esto se habló
private
al menos dos
partners.
veces hoy,
And something that was mentioned at least twice today is that digitalization is not just the responsibility of the government or the
sino
public
que
sector,
se debe
but
promover
it
la
should be
participación privada y se necesitan
the
también
participation of
políticas públicas.
private sector should also be promoted.
Dos puntos más, dos grandes títulos más y
Other
avanzamos.
two big
Financiamiento.
headers, financing, first one,
Siempre para
for the development of
utilizan.
technologies and their
Hay un
use.
crecimiento
There is a
significativo de la
significant
cantidad de
growth
dinero
in the
canalizado
number
para el
of
desarrollo de
private
startups en
money
términos
available
generales.
for the development of startups. And we gave some figures,
$20 billones en los últimos 3
$25 billion
años en América
in the
Latina,
past 3 years in
aunque
Latin
una
America,
proporción menor
even
se dedica
though
a aptex. Entonces,
a
financiamiento
lower
privado
percentage of that is
realmente fuerte.
allocated for aptics.
Como otro ítem, la banca
Another item would be
y fondos
that
de desarrollo multilateral
multilateral
priorizan
development
la
funds have
transformación
prioritized the
e
topic
incluyen a
of
la
digital
agricultura
transformation, and they
como
include
financiación.
agriculture. It's one of their priorities in their
Lo
agenda,
que escuchamos de BID,
based on what we heard from
Organización
IDB,
Mundial de Finanzas y CAF,
IFAD, and
tienen
CAF.
actualmente diversos programas de acompañamiento
They
y
have
apalancamiento de
different
aptex.
ways to
Hay
leverage and
margen,
accompany
ellos lo
aptics,
plantearon así, hay
and
margen para
there's
coordinar
margin
acciones y
to
generar sinergias
coordinate
entre
actions and
estas
generate
acciones
synergies
que esas organizaciones
in
están llevando
the
adelante hoy
actions
día.
carried out by the different
Y por último,
organizations.
bajo el paraguas del
And
financiamiento,
under the
el
financing umbrella,
financiamiento
we
de
also have
programas públicos nacionales
financing
puede
of
ser un
national
instrumento
public
clave
programs
y
can be
complementario
key
al
and
resto de las fuentes de
supplementary
financiamiento aptex.
to aptic financing
Bien,
sources.
y para finalizar,
And to
un
conclude,
último apartado
one last
que
section
provisoriamente lo llamamos
that we called
llamado a la
for
acción
now a call to action
o lineamientos para la acción.
or guidelines for action.
Tratamos de incluir ahí
But
como
we
los
try to
temas
include there the
concretos
most specific
fundamentales
things that
y
were
expresarles que
mentioned as
incluyen lo
prioritary
siguiente.
actions that
Número
can be
uno,
carried out. Number
es
one,
necesario generar
it is
espacios de
necessary to
coordinación y
create
de
rooms for
definición de los
coordination and
distintos actores y
planning among the
geografías y
different
el desarrollo.
geographies and
Se
stakeholders.
dedican
So
claramente
many people
en
said
ese
that
sentido.
this
También espacios de
week is
encuentro
one
y
example of that,
capacitación
since also
coordinados
support
regionalmente
and training
entre
coordinated
emprendedores
regionally from the
y con
startups
alcance regional.
and with a regional scope.
Punto número dos,
Number
es necesario
two, it
establecer
is
políticas
necessary to
basadas en
establish
acuerdos de
state
desarrollo y
policies
consumo
that
de soluciones digitales,
allow the use
impulsando una nueva
and
relacionalidad
enjoyment of
apoyada
digital
fuertemente
technologies
en la vinculación
supported
entre sectores
in the
públicos y
link
privados.
between public and
Es
private sectors.
prioritaria la formulación de
It
políticas y
is
programas
important to
para la
strengthen
transformación de
policies and
habilidades digitales, en
programs
especial en los
for
jóvenes.
digital transformation,
Bien,
especially among the
esto fue
youth.
muy repetido.
That was repeated as well.
Los jóvenes están
The
ávidos de
youth are
tecnología,
willing
constituye
to
una
learn,
oportunidad
and the technology
increíble de revinculación
is a
y
clear
revalorización de la
way
agricultura y la pesca.
to reassess and call back the youth to the field
Uy. Bueno, para promover el desarrollo y
to
aprovechamiento de
promote the
estos
development
servicios
and
podemos
the use of
promover
the
el
solutions.
desarrollo de casos pilotos de
We can have
digitalización.
some digitalization pilot projects.
Sería importante
It would be
direccionar
important
financiamiento, en especial
to
público, para generar
allocate
estos casos
public
pilotos
financing for those
y
pilot
permitiría
projects,
visibilizar,
and this
promover el
will allow
desarrollo y
to
generar
raise
aprendizaje.
awareness and learnings.
Surgen riesgos
There
derivados
are a
del
number
uso
of
de los
risks
datos que se generan con
derived from the
digitalización
data
y es
that come
necesario
with
abordar este tema
digitalization.
y
It's
educar a
necessary
los
to address
agricultores
this
y a
topic and
otros sujetos
educate
de datos
farmers and other
para
people who
minimizar los riesgos.
generate data to minimize the risk.
Finalmente,
And finally,
Actex y
aptics
resto de actores participantes
and
en las
other
actividades son
players
responsables y se
involved in this
comprometen, como
week
se dijo ayer,
will commit
a la difusión de mensajes
to
y propuestas de acción
communicate the
hacia los usuarios
proposals
de
and
Actex
action points
y el
discussed during this week, and ICA
comprometido con
it will
generar
also
espacios de
commit
diálogo,
to
comunicación
generate
y
spaces
vinculación,
for dialogue
algo que hemos
and
reiterado como
networking, like
necesario
in this
en
case.
reiteradas
And that
ocasiones.
was mentioned several times as well.
Hasta aquí llegó la lista.
That was the list.
Em, Más allá de la formulación específica que
And
nosotros
aside
requerimos,
from
porque lo hicimos de
how
manera
it was drafted,
organizada,
because this was done in a hurry. So
a medida que íbamos
we were
avanzando en
writing this
días,
down as we were moving forward. So we haven't been able
hacer
to
un wording
purge and have a better
mejor.
wording
Lo importante
for
sería
things. So those are the main ideas pretty much.
ver si más o menos
So
están todos los puntos,
the idea is to see if we have all the points
más o
included
menos
there,
claro,
or if there's something that doesn't
si es
sound quite
importante
right, or if you
agregar.
want us to add something.
Perdón. Brian y luego
Brian
Angélica.
and then Angelica.
Y tomo nota de lo que se vaya diciendo para eventualmente agregarlo.
We'll take note of what's being said. I'll be brief. Otherwise, there's something very important I think we missed is that the same way we're talking about training for farmers, there should also be training for these leaders who will be in charge of the budgets or the projects we have discussed so much. Because if in this moment, leaders that have many years managing resources, if they don't learn all the things we've discussed, and they won't make a difference with those resources. So training those leaders who will be in charge of the projects in general. Thank you, Brian. I think that relates directly to what Federico presented on Monday. It's the school to train leaders in agro-food systems, and I understand that's what you're highlighting, which has a chapter on digital agriculture. Anjali, yes, I want to revisit a comment made by Marta yesterday. I believe it's very important to consider from the ag techs and from the various initiatives that are developed, which is a gender component. We in Include Tech, of 100% of the loans have been processed, 38% is for women. But when the advisors go to the field and they start asking about family finance, how much they spend, how much they receive, who they owe, who owes them, the one that answers is the woman. However, generally, the loan is processed in name of the male. So he is the holder of the loan. We have identified that as long as we have information sources that show us the reality of women in rural sector and in the farm, we'll be able to develop initiatives and projects that cover their needs. In our case, we have always thought how we should be able to develop a specialized score on rural women, but to do that, we need information. So the invitation is that from the different fronts to start getting the information and identify women's specificities in the rural and a farm section to have things that will cover their needs increasingly. Thank you very much, Angelica. Marta, Matias, what I would like to see, if it's possible, not for us, but we'd like to know if the companies here could be part of an ICA portal as a solution, and your solutions can be shown as the ones that are selected in a portal. And I'm sure the attorneys here, they will say that everyone's in charge of their own part, but they are the winners, for instance. For instance, in US, Microsoft has a program called Women in Cloud, and this is pretty much a portal with certain legal specificities. Basically, women in software are posted in Microsoft, and this is a window, but it's also a way for people to understand AgTech through the organization. Excellent, Marta. Thank you. To expand on what Angelica said, data not only for financial, we have several projects with artificial intelligence algorithms, and we're getting data from the US because it's very well organized in various types of layers. And in South and Central America, since it's many smaller countries, everything is very granular and disseminated. So to have better structured data sources will facilitate all the artificial intelligence that is needed. Now, just to check to see if I'm going down the right line, Angelica as well, Matias are talking about data as a public good, as a basis for more accurate development. You know, what the value add is the information you could take from the data. Gabriel, two comments. The first one, and I'll use my case in Argentina, not because I want to refer to my own case, but I work with agro companies that have working teams in a framework which is already mature, very well articulated. which has a technical, very important technical support, 300 technical advisors for over 2,000 producers, where the entrepreneurs have a high education level with certain basic infrastructure. And the adoption of technology, with all that, we have several issues in adoption of technology. I believe we must work precisely in all these elements that I mentioned, that I have the luck to explore in Argentina, because I'm sure that you don't have it, dissemination of technologies becomes even more difficult. So I believe we should promote integration between producers, that we must promote creation of networks, that we must promote technical support to farmers and improve the education level and basic infrastructure. I'm not saying transform Latin America into English country, but to have the basic infrastructure resolved. That's the first thing. And the second thing is related to expectations. I insist that no one escapes from the technology adoption curve. And many of the things we saw today are innovations. Let's not pretend we're having massive adoption of technology instantly. This will take time, the adoption. The important thing for me is to make more robust the adoption with those who are pioneers in the technology and have the mechanisms for this to flow well, the adoption.
Muchas gracias, Gaby.
Thank you, Gabi.
¿Quién más se apunta?
Wells,
Adelante. ¿Hay algún micrófono que podamos llevar allá?
is there a microphone?
Ahí en la punta hay un micrófono.
Muy buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to everyone, and my name is Laura Alberde. I'm a professor of a technical agro high school. I do apologize, I'm a little nervous, but it's something very important. I believe the same way training is important for farmers, we have in our hands many students from rural areas who can eventually have the basis to take to their families. Most of them are children of farmers. I think we as professors can have that potential to share that information. For instance, in my high school, it's 11 colleagues in this area. We have forest engineers, we have agro engineers, we have economists, agro managers. There's a number of specialties that if we were able to form or create projects, I think we would have capacity in all areas, because it's a varied group. So I think support in training is very important. The high school in which I work has a very good infrastructure, very good equipment. Recently, or a few years ago, we received a drone that has it's 10 million colones is its value. We're trained, but I don't feel capable of going and explaining to a farmer all the different functionalities of the drone. I think we are willing to learn. We have many topics we can share. We don't only give these the specialty, we give workshops on minor species, bovines, environmental management. We cannot be experts in everything, but we are willing to learn whatever we can and to make ourselves available to everyone here. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Laura.
Thank you very much, Laura, and thank you for bringing the voice of teachers who have participated yesterday and today. This Congress, we appreciate it very much.
¿Algún aporte más? ¿Alguna idea más?
Any other contribution? Any other comment?
¿No? Ya no damos más.
I think we're all pretty worn out.
Nos quedamos sin ideas.
We ran out of ideas.
Sí. Te- Muy buen resumen, muy buen
A
trabajo.
very good summary. It was a very good
Adelante.
work. Please go ahead.
Sí, muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. And Andrea Jimenez from the Ministry of Education.
Primero que nada,
And first of all, I want to mention that it's been 2 days where we have participated here, which, and I speak for my colleagues, we have learned a lot of things from you. You're in a sector that at the end of the day is like the objective we want to attain with our students, that with the knowledge we convey to them during 3 years in a specialty, or 6 years in many cases, that are with us since they're very young through 18 years old, where they go and pursue a career or a business. All your companies are the dream we have as professors for our own students, for them to fulfill, or for them to fulfill their goals, for them to create their own business, and to know that things are not easy, that there's always stone, it's always a stony road, but that things can be achieved. First of all, I want to thank you for the work you do. It's a very important work you do. And as Laura said, we are here to support you in training and technology transfer, which is very important. There is something I would like, we tried to discuss this, or it was seen very lightly during the time we were here, was in the generational relay, which is very important. It's very important that you work with parents and grandparents, and at the end, the ones who receive the ideas are youth. But the thing is, young people don't have the power to implement the ideas we bring. So the idea is beyond something we're trying to resolve, to leave it there for future gatherings. And it's how we can achieve this generational replacement that affects all of us, because at the end of the day, it's young people who are more open to agriculture, digitalization, but they are ones that have the least amount of options in the farms of their families, parents, grandparents, in many cases, their uncles and aunts. So I think this is one of the biggest challenges we have in digital agriculture, which is how do we work with all this generational replacement that we need for digital agriculture to become a reality even bigger than what it currently is in our systems, because we have done many things, but there are other things we can do through these new young people we're training now. And I believe this is one of the biggest challenges we have in digital agriculture.
Muchísimas gracias, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Andrea.
Bueno, si no tenemos más
If there are no further comments, I give the floor to Federico for him to give some final comments. Federico. Thank you. Federico 1 to Federico 2. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you all for everything, because there was a lot of prior work. First of all, to Federico, Carlos, to Viviana, and to Priscilla, and the whole TSC Communications, who have been working for many months for this to happen. The agenda was thought out very carefully. Every detail you saw. In other words, there's been great preparation, but success at the end depends on you. And I think it's definitely been very successful because there's been topics, very important topics discussed, and very important things have been stated. Some things we foresaw, but the important thing was to hear it from you. And other things we didn't consider that also came out, which I believe are very important, very relevant, that are reflected in what Federico recently explained, that you enriched very much. Some general comments are initially, and remember that initially I spoke about the various types of international organizations, and ICA is a cooperation organism, technical cooperation. This doesn't take away the fact that we have interaction and discussion with the rest of the teams or international organizations for financing and also articulation. That's not our mission, but to complete this, we must work with them as well as them working with us. So that cooperation, although it happens between international organisms, it's also important for this to happen between all stakeholders. Therefore, if we do cooperation, we also promote cooperation. And this is something that came up in many of the discussions, and this reflects cooperation between different players, and you are part of these. You with public national organisms, you with the financing organism. Cooperation, definitely, it's cooperation. Another element I want to highlight, which came up and it was important, but it was mentioned by you several times, is the importance of communication. And when we speak about communication, we are referring to informing, conveying what we do. And whoever hears will hear, and some will be interested. But communication is much more than that. Advancing down that line, more than transferring, it's building knowledge, communication with a teachers group that was mentioned several times, communication with producers, communicating. That as a big issue we must advance in, not because it's a problem, but because it's important. That also came up, and I think it's very important, and it's very important to highlight that. Speaking to you about the importance of digital agriculture is almost stupid, because that's why you came. But I do want to highlight one thing: digital agriculture, and you are one of the clearest expressions of digital agriculture, because this is something that is very important. It's important to governments, it's important to the countries, to the states. After COVID, I think this is something we should capitalize on. You are known as very important actors. Know that and use that. I think that is core. And the fact that we're here speaks about that. And this is precisely connected with the fourth point, which is related to the political influence. And many say, or I was saying, that digital agriculture and you as subjects of that digital agriculture are known and politically important. You could do nothing with that, or you can do things. It's much more difficult for those who are not recognized as someone important, or in those areas that are not known. So you have to position these in the agenda. But in your case, in digital agriculture, that's not precisely the case. There are possibilities to influence, and we should influence. And there was recently a very clear expression about that. It was very clear. Most of you are examples. You're being watched. It's not only what you say or do, or proactively, but in your day in, day out, you're being watched. You're examples. So, and this entails responsibility. The future of digital agriculture depends on what you do and how you do it. And there's a responsibility there. If ICA can help, we will help. Federico explain how this will happen, but there is a strong responsibility from your part. You're the stars of this novel, so it depends on you. And along that same line of political influence, there's another element that we identified in ICA that has great importance, which is gaining even more importance, where there's some weak leadership, and we're working to build that, which is related to promoting science, technology, and innovation as a greater umbrella. Obviously, digital agriculture is part of it. For many years, science, technology, and innovation was priority. After a green revolution, that was the discourse. Then it had some variations, and now it's regaining strength in the need to advance in science, technology, and innovation. And this is clear in the countries as well as in the need to find answers to the great challenges. And these are issues faced by society. So the place of digital agriculture and science, technology, and innovation is new, and it does represent great responsibility for you. When you speak about science, technology, and innovation, we're talking about digital agriculture also, and we're talking very strongly about it. And now, what is, I mentioned this initially, I think Federico also mentioned this, but what is it that we are already doing in ICA, and we're already doing this year, and we could commit based on the results Federico just read and based on the summary of this meeting? This is about positioning science, technology, and innovation, and this is something mentioned by the minister, and I'm sure you'll hear many times because it's a fad, which is related to creating a narrative. Creating a narrative pursues finding assumptions that we all agree upon to understand what is happening. That's kind of the narrative. And in ICA, we're advancing the creation of that narrative and together with actors, and you're part of those actors. And we are doing this, something that through the Inter-American Agriculture Board will be the Continental Alliance. And there's also COP, which is the meeting on climate crisis, which is held every year, where countries commit to all these different things in global level to work towards that. But in this continental partnership, there's a greater component. One of the components is, of the few it has, there's one related to science, technology, and innovation, and digital agriculture. And we'll take these conclusions there to be considered by the ministers of agriculture of the 34 countries, precisely, even though it's already in the agenda, for them to know there are actors who are interested in influencing in that politic and in these terms, in those policies. Therefore, the political validation, and then take this to the Conference of Parts, COP, on climate change as one of the elements that contributes from science, innovation, and technology that helps to face this issue, because it's clear we will not resolve that, you or us, but it's something we have to do in a cooperative way. We must do it all. And to wrap it up, and I want to, I will give a segue to Miguel Angel. I'm sure he'll speak about this. The billboard in the back says Agriculture of Americas. ICA is a house of Agriculture of America. This is the headquarters of ICA, but there's an office in each one of the 34 countries. It's a house of Agriculture of Americas, but it's also your house. And the objective is for you to take ownership of this house, of these topics, and for you to feel you are part of what we are doing together. And I insist on this point that I believe has been very successful, and I insist on congratulating you for your work, for your dedication, and for your commitment you all had during these 3.5 days, a very extensive work and temporary rigorosity because we did respect all times. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Fede.
Thank you very much, Fede,
Pensar y repensar las distintas
for thinking and
queden
rethinking
resonando por lo menos
all these
para
words, and they
poder
resonate,
reconocer
especially
la responsabilidad
that
de
related
lo que hacemos
to
aquí y lo que podemos
all
hacer con eso de acá para
everyone's
adelante.
responsibility here and what we can do going
Para
forward.
cerrar, entonces, quería
And to
pasarle
close
la
it
palabra a
off, I
Miguel
want to give the floor to
Arbelo,
Miguel Angel Arbelo,
además
Cabinet
de
Chief in
representante del ICA en Costa
ICA,
Rica,
and besides that, representative of ICA in Costa Rica. And I want to thank you uh, for coming to the closing of this very important event for all of us. Miguel. Thank you, Federicos. You saw that to work in ICA, you must be named Federico. No, I won't extend myself, nor I want to give a speech because I see you're tired, and that is good. I hope you're tired not only for partying, but also because these were very hard working days of exchange. And I want to add what I perceive from the organizers. The organizers are very satisfied with what was developed here and these days in this hall. 4 years ago, we started working on the possibility that in ICA's hemispheric program to include digital agriculture. Not because digital agriculture is very important, it's because digital is very important. And seeing agriculture, or continue seeing agriculture with a very traditional approach. And this is being said by an organism that is 80 years old. Remember the old man in Ops, which is an old man who was a dreamer. That's part of what we're betting for right now in ICA, which has changed a lot in latter years. Manuel Otero always asks us to help him convey this message. And in several forums in this same hall with great frequency, we put agriculture as the culprit. And it's blamed for green revolution. And here we promoted green revolution, by the way. We promoted a number of models that at the moment sound good, but they left space for new types or new ways of doing things. But now it's a moment for digital agriculture, and this is reflected here. And we try to reflect this 80-year-old man trying to reflect it, not in its living will, but it's in its life, because we hope to reach at least 100 years with this institute that, in fact, is the home of agriculture. This institute has as a mandate, first, it belongs to the 34 countries of America. Therefore, we're very happy for having 75 nominees. And at the end, 15 from 9 countries came that represent America. And that's something very important. But we also have a challenge. We need to work in more countries. We need to get into the Caribbean. Any initiative in the Caribbean is very important. Any initiative we can promote in the Amazons, or the projects from Amazon, from Chaco, from areas that at the end are very sensible for our planet and for our hemisphere. So each event and each space and gathering we have with business people like you gives us elements and challenges, and it puts even more strength to this technical program, which is, once again, this technical program is 1 year old, 1.5 years old. And we're happy to see that we can share and convey that happiness that you conveyed to this organization for these 3 days. And I insist in this hall many times to speak about problems. And these 3 days in this hall, we spoke about solutions and plans for the agro sector. And this is very important because, in fact, agriculture won't change by itself. It'll change with the actors, and we will start giving a space to these types of new actors. And that's part of the mandate we are called for. Agriculture won't change in-house For that reason, we have to emphasize communication. This serves if as apostles come out of this and we start disseminating the need to do things in a different way and start using technology. Nowadays, that you're always in social media, you get engaged in these things, which is pretty much our life. You can see how there's panic because of artificial intelligence. And those who are not willing to change and use that instrument, I'm not saying panic, you must be terrified by this because it's unstoppable. Any amount of changes that have definitely happened previously. So you're not only the apostles, but also the martyrs of this that is coming. Because the digital world is coming, we're in a digital world. We don't even know about this. And with this, agriculture cannot be distracted, cannot be left out, and it won't be forgiven by this reality. And being pioneers in this is fundamental. Being pioneers from the private perspective, but being pioneers also in the public standpoint, start generating policies. I'm happy there's people like me, people with gray hair, because this is something where young people will promote a world we still don't know, but we are obliged as a generation to generate that path forward. And that's part of what Manuel Otero has asked us to promote during his tenure with something he promotes, Open Doors ICA. But Open Doors is not just come and visit. Open Doors come and challenge us, come and help us, come and convey information, come and use these spaces, which is not only this headquarters, but it's 34 offices throughout the continent. And for that reason, it's my responsibility, because it's a responsibility at the end, to close this session, but to summon future 30, 15, 30 sessions to push you to cause a change that is unstoppable. And there will be a lot of people who will try to stop it. Believe me, the creation of this program, short and long term, had resistance, continues having resistance, because new things generate resistance and fear. And part of what we have understood is that new things are necessary precisely to improve, to transform, and to change. Doing agriculture the way we've been doing it is part of what we should not do. And condemn this sector that has given us food and took us from 2 billion people to 9 billion. Well, it's part of what is our responsibility. Continue producing food, caring for the environment, and somehow improve the way in which we produce. For that, those ways of production to generate more wealth, to fight poverty, is part of our responsibility, part of a new agriculture in which technology is the key. Knowledge will be the key. Business promotion is the key, is no longer just natural resources. And for that reason, we like this relationship we created with CAF, with FIA, with Jeff Lab, with Bayer, with Microsoft, with Veolia, and with PitLab. And by having you here for this week, but somehow having closed the circle, it has, I don't know, 4, 5, 8 months since the first invitation was given. As I said, this is your home, and this is literally true. It's a public good of the agriculture of America that you must use. It's our responsibility to care for this heritage and maintain it for service. And so for us, it's been a pleasure having you here this week and continue sharing with you. And obviously, with these words, I don't want us to take away sadness because we closed, but I mean, forward looking and Otero and everyone who's part of this family in Ica of closing this stage, but somehow leave our commitment open going forward. ICA has this commitment, and I ratify that. We'll continue working down this line. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Miguel, for your kind words. So with that, we conclude this second edition of the Digital Agriculture Week at ICA. We are, as you said, very, very happy to have welcomed you all here. As Miguel was saying, we ask you to commit, to keep this space open, and and we'll do whatever we have to do so as well. And we worked hard to open this space. I wanted to thank Viviana, Priscila, Ricardo, Adriana, Emanuel, Gina, Randy, Isaac, Veronica, to Ivania. I always mispronounce your name, I'm sorry. And Carlos and Liz, because they have worked unconditionally, minute after minute, every single day, 24/7. And Federico Villarreal for his trust, and Miguel and Manuel Otero, who's not here, because without their support, their trust, nothing would be possible. So thank you very much.